Is this set actually good or is it just overhyped? Let's find out. Hello my creative peeps and welcome back for today's video. Today we are taking a look at the HIMI Gouache. This is the 24 set. This is the third installment of the I Try Your Wishlist Supply series. The series where each month I take your suggestions for what supplies you want me to try, put it to a vote by my patrons, and then come back to you with a formal kind of review and experimentation. So if you'd like to check out the other videos I've done in this series, I'll leave a playlist linked below. But other than that, let's roll into this because I'm very excited to dive in. This is a gouache set that has gone viral many times. I'm sure you have seen this before. This is the Jelly Cup Gouache and it comes in this cool case here, which off the bat I'm already a little worried about because it does have these gaps on the edge. This edge here is sitting pretty flush, but I had already kind of unclicked the lid and took a little sneaky peek and tried to put the lid back on and I can't get it to sit right. Maybe that will change once we take the wrappers off, but that worries me a little bit. I also noticed that these hinges right here, the plastic hinges, it kind of almost looks like it's gonna snap off. You see that there? So I don't know, just kind of my first impressions here. So let's take this off. So we have our lid, which clicks on. This kind of reminds me of like a lunchbox or something. So you have a lid. With that, you have a little plastic mixing palette, which is a cool addition. This has already got schmutz on it. Then they also give you a set of 3 brushes, which is pretty cool. There's a 4, a 6, and an 8, and they're all in different types. So I thought that was pretty cool. You can keep them stored in here if you just wanted to have brushes to go with your gouache. And then this particular set has the color names on the top. It's a little hard to see with the lighting here, but this is what your cup looks like. It has the name on the top, which of course we're peeling this off, so I don't know how super helpful that is. And then they are clear with kind of the paint color that you can see there on the bottom. They're in a weird color arrangement in my opinion, so I'm gonna go ahead and kind of look at them and put them in their own color array. But yeah, that's just kind of a first look at the set. There is some information on the bottom which I want to show to you. I just don't want to flip this over and like have all of the cups, like the paint stuck to the lid, since we're not keeping the lid. So let's conserve as much paint as possible. All right, on the bottom here, there's this label, and it does have the different color names with like some swatches on it. I don't know how helpful that is since it's on the bottom, and I'm definitely not going to want to tip this upside down after. But it does have that. It says your shelf life is 36 months, so I thought that was a cool thing to put on there. So it's really meant for you to use up within like 3 years. 24 colors. They have a website you can visit down below, but of course I got mine on Amazon. So I'm going to go ahead and look at these cups and kind of put them in some sort of order that is aesthetically pleasing to me. And then we will take the little wrappers off and get to swatching. All right, after a lot of messing around, I think I have them where I want them. Now we are going to start removal and swatching. I have heard this can be a very messy process, so we shall see. I'm gonna move all of these back. I'm a little nervous. All right, let's do this. I can't get the first one open, so we're off to a good start. Let's try this end. There we go. Oh my. Just like blooped right out. Not bad, not bad. All right, one down. And I'm going to take my overflow journal here and find a page to wipe these excess ones on. How about... Oh, don't know if I like that. But there it is. It kind of sucks that the name is on the lid because it's like, all right, now I don't have anything that says that anymore. You know what I mean? I'm going to take this scrap piece of paper here. And put them on there in hopes that they don't go flying, so I can kind of write the name on my swatch card, but we'll see how that goes. Come on. Come on, baby, you can do it. I see you want to try. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. Okay. Someone should make this easier. It's like it's almost sealed too well and doesn't want to come off the plastic. Super weird. Okay. I'm a mess. All right. Wow. That is a labor of love for sure. I ended up not bothering to smush off the paint on the lids. Just don't have time. It was going to take a long time, so I decided against it. So let's get to some swatching, shall we? In terms of continuing to take the lids off, as you saw, I struggled quite a bit with several of them, and then other ones came off like no problem. So I'm not sure what's up with that, but we got them all open. I am already seeing the challenge here with it being so big, just having like the desk space for it. I want you guys to be able to like see the whole thing. All right, let's take these brushes out. Let's use the number 6 flat. I think this is called a filbert. Don't quote me on that. And then this is a round, a 4 round. So you have a 4 round, a 6 flat, and a 8. I'm gonna say filbert, but again, I have no idea if that's correct. So for those of you that don't know, gouache is a medium that's kind of like acrylic and watercolor. You can re-wet it after it is dry, so it will reconstitute, much like a pan of watercolors do. But while you can get some transparent action going, like you can with watercolor, it also has the opacity of acrylic paint, and it's supposed to, or usually, dries pretty matte. So that's kind of the difference in things, in case you were curious about that. I am going ahead and swatching on watercolor paper as well as on my moleskin notebook. So I have like a nice paper going on here, and then a more just regular type of paper. The regular moleskin paper here definitely does not enjoy water, so I'm interested to see how this works on there. So I'm just going to continue on with these swatches, and I'll be back. Alright, swatches are all dry. This is what we're looking like. First impressions of these, I'm really excited to use them. I actually really enjoy the colors that they provided. I'm someone who's not super into like the very generic primaries. Ultramarine blue is never really something I use. Fire engine red, you know, but the shades of like, I love this yellow and this yellow. This green is awesome. Love the yellow green. Love the jade. Basically, if I was making my own palette, a lot of these would end up inside whatever I was creating. So I thought that was really cool. This color they name purple, but it's clearly pink to me. So I mean, that doesn't really matter much for anything, but just a little side note. I did close this up. They were really, really thick, which is nice because you can get a super opaque layer, but I am quite concerned about how fast they're going to dry out. I know that I can just like spray them with water and they'll stay moist. So I'm not sure if I'll do that like tonight or if I'll do it every couple of times I use it and whatnot, but I didn't put this in because I wanted to see if the sides would seal, and it really doesn't look any better than it did before. I'm also very concerned that if I put this in, it's just gonna all get covered with paint, and then I'm gonna have a palette that's covered in wet paint that I have to find a spot for. So hopefully that doesn't mess with, you know, the whole thing. I also have to remember to make sure this is always flat, which is going to be interesting. But yeah, we shall see. I will leave you here with my first impressions. Oh, I also should say they're definitely matte. They're not chalky. It almost has like a borderline chalky feel to it, but it doesn't come off at all. It's definitely matte, slightly textured. Again, definitely kind of feels chalky, but it's not like gonna come off. And it also seemed to re-wet really nicely, even after like some of these dried real fast, and when I went in with water they reconstituted. So that was really cool. Didn't bleed through the other side even with water, which is insanely impressive for this paper. I probably should have done it on, you know, something that was easier for you to see, but oh, I can just show you the other side, right? Silly me. So yeah, it didn't bleed through at all, which is going to be awesome for this journal and this thinner paper. It makes it nice and crinkly. I just, so far, am very excited to work with them. So I will go back, work with them in my journals, and we'll chat again soon. Dun dun dun! Here we are for final thoughts. I had posted that I was going to do this review, and several of you were very excited, which makes me excited. Most of you had questions about how these dry out over time. So I did delay the video a few days. I didn't add on a ton of time, but I have at least had these open for a couple of weeks now and wanted to kind of share with you what they look like after that amount of time. This may be something that I kind of update you on in the future if you're interested of, you know, 6 months from now or a year from now, what they look like. But for now, I'm going to show you the different things I did with them, and we'll talk about my pros and cons, you know, the usual. So here we are. I did mess around a little bit with creating like a gradient wash, which was fun. That worked out pretty well. I wanted to test the opacity, and I made this like big question mark. I was going to put it as a tip in my journal, but I decided against it because I wasn't a huge fan of how it turned out. But as you can see, I did black gouache on one side and green gouache on the other. This is only one coat, and you can barely see the black coming through. So when you put these down, you get really good coverage and opacity, which is fantastic and something that I enjoy quite a lot in my supplies. I played around with different patterns. I've been really into this kind of like tablecloth buffalo check pattern recently, so I was just kind of playing around with the technique of making those patterns, seeing the ways that I liked to do that. But I was using the gouache with, you know, different amounts of water and different layering techniques to kind of experiment with, which was fun. This is kind of a more full strength version, and then, you know, slightly more watered down as we go. This one is watered down quite a bit. And I did find actually that like randomly some of them would be chalky. I've rubbed it off for the most part now, but it did have a little bit of chalkiness. So I was wondering if it was because I had reconstituted them from the palette. So I'd used some of them on here and then re-wet them and used it. So I tried to recreate that here to see if it would happen again, and it didn't. I also tried them out straight with watering them down a little bit, and I did my smooshing technique. None of them recreated that weird chalky effect. So I don't know if it's a fluke thing, but it is possible. Also, if you have moisture on your fingers and stuff, it is going to kind of come off a little bit because it is water reactive. So there's that to keep in mind. That also does affect a little bit how you write over it. I wrote over this with a ballpoint pen. It does really gunk up your pen, so definitely don't use anything you're precious about over this. If you're going to kind of draw over the top, I definitely would not use a fine liner. Gel pen's probably not a good idea. Marker doesn't really work too well. You really need just, like I said, either a ballpoint pen you don't care about or if you're going to use like an ink with a brush or something over the top. If you put your fountain pen over this, it will ruin it probably instantly. So just a couple of things to note there in case you were curious about that. I also did this. I don't usually do these types of works. I'm not like an artiste. I more just like to, you know, use it in backgrounds and things in my journal. But I did want to try this out because I was inspired by this tea tag that I had gotten that said "Bring me sunset in a cup." So I stenciled out this bottle and did this kind of sunset work in it. There are quite a few layers, and as long as you let the paint dry, it does lay over top really well. It's really great if you make mistakes. You can kind of just cover the whole thing with a different color, and even if the color's a little bit lighter than the one you used, it does a pretty good job. So I was pretty impressed by that. That was really fun to kind of play around with and create. I also used the green here. I did a lettering technique, so I wrote March in this lighter green color, and then I went back in with my paintbrush and just made some like faux shadows on the side, and it created a fun like block bubble letter technique. I'll definitely be doing that again. That was a lot of fun. Same thing with the leaves. I made a leaf shape with the lighter green, and then I just did a little swipe with the darker and drew on top again with a pen. This time I did use a gel pen. This was the Hybrid Technica. It does okay with mixed media, but again, definitely gunked up my tip and I had to kind of work at it after. And then last but not least, I used the black gouache to black out the background on this page. This is a hot mess page, but I did want to show it to you because I had things that I only put one coat of black on and it pretty much covered it completely. I had tried to do a kind of faux galaxy type of thing and it didn't look good. I'm mostly used to doing those with watercolor, so the technique didn't quite transfer very well. I did go ahead over the top and use this paint marker, and I had to wipe it off as I went because the gouache reactivates with water and you're using, you know, a paint pen that is wet. It picks up all the black color in the background, and I definitely had to like wipe it off, and you could see it got like less green as it went on. This I had to do a double coat on, but probably not something I would do again, putting the paint pen over it, but it was a fun experiment. Really fun, amazingly vibrant colors. I'm obsessed with the coverage. I think it's just so much fun, very versatile. Watercolor and acrylic paint are two of my favorite mediums, so take that into consideration. If you don't like acrylic paint and you prefer watercolor, this might not be the medium for you, because I would definitely say it leads more towards that painterly side than it does a watercolor side, especially in terms of the opacity and the way that it behaves, because it is very thick. Let's see, thick and vibrant, opaque. They are student grade for sure. It's definitely not an artist tool, but I just use my stuff in journals, so I'm not super worried about things like that. But if you were worried about the light fastness and things like that, that may be something to consider. And they do re-wet and move after they have dried. So let's talk about the pros first. So again, super vibrant. I love the unique colors. I think I already talked about how I love the colors that they chose to put in the set. I thought they were very unique and very much in line with the tones that I like to work with. They don't have any tubes, so there's like no like palettes and things to mess with. I found that with other gouaches I had tried, I often didn't reach for it because it's like an extra step to take out the tube and, you know, see what the color swatch was and put it on my palette and work with it that way. So I really like the cup design for lazy people where you can just open it up and all the paints are ready to go. I thought that was really fun. I definitely found myself reaching for it more because of that. The layerability is fantastic. They layer over each other really well. And overall, I really, really like the set. Again, if you aren't a fan of acrylic paint, this may not be something that you enjoy. Let's talk about the cons. So they are high maintenance because you're going to have to maintain the wetness and kind of keep an eye on them. Even if you don't use them for a while, come in and add water to them and mix them around. to get them to stay nice. It does take up a lot of space, and you have to keep the set upright. Obviously, if you flipped it over, they would probably go everywhere and things. So you have to have the space for it. You couldn't just like stand it up sideways and shove it in a corner or do whatever you're going to do. If you're going to store it, it has to be like this. So that could be kind of a con. They can be slightly chalky, like I talked about, in those like weird instances. I found for the most, like 90% not chalky, but sometimes they dry down weird like that, and I'm not quite sure what does it. I don't know if it's the ratio of water that I added or what, but there's that. I didn't like the brushes that they included with the set, which isn't a huge deal. I have my own brushes. Yeah, I just wasn't a fan. The round one wasn't bad, the round 4, but these Filbert and the flat brushes, first off, they stain like super easy, probably because the bristles are white and they are synthetic. I only used them a couple times and the barrels already look pretty gross. So there's that. I mean, you don't buy it for the paint brushes, but I thought I would mention that none of the bristles fall out, but these do tend to get pretty streaky if you're using it with these flat brushes versus the round brush. So not a huge fan of the brushes. I probably won't keep them. I'll probably toss these two. I might keep the round one. But another con in terms of this setup is this palette design. If you put the palette on top, it's gonna get all covered in paint, which then you can't set it anywhere. You'd have to clean it off before you could use it. So you do have to kind of find a separate place for this, but that's not a huge deal, I suppose. So let's take a look at the paint pots themselves and how they've kind of dried and stuff over time. Give you a good idea, some of the paints I used, some of them I didn't. There were ones that I sprayed with water and mixed together, and other ones that I just kind of left alone. You'll notice it on this one especially, since it was closer to the gap. You can see that it started to, see if I can get it to focus. You can see kind of on the edge that it started to dry out there. I did spray it a little bit with water when I first got it, but in just a couple of weeks that is kind of like gunky. It's not hard yet, but it definitely needs to be wet and mixed. Same deal with this one, especially on the edges here. It started to kind of dry up a little bit and will need to be re-wet and mixed. Some of the paints get this like oily separated look to them, so you do have to kind of mix them every once in a while. You can really see that in this green and how that's shiny and started to separate in those spots there. This purple one is one that I placed in the middle. It seems to be doing better than the others, especially in terms of drying out on the edges, because I have like wet it and mixed it. But you can definitely see in the corner here it's starting to separate a little bit, and it's getting that like kind of skin, that paint skin looking on the top. So I'd say every week or every 2 weeks at the latest, I'm gonna have to open this, spray it, and mix some of the colors. Which could be a huge pain in the butt. Very high maintenance, especially if I'm not using it a lot, in order to keep them kind of in their jelly consistency. I know I could probably experiment with doing things like putting saran wrap over the top before I put the cover on, or, you know, various other techniques, but it definitely is something to keep in mind when considering it. I'm interested to see whether I can keep up on that, because I'm usually pretty low maintenance type of person. You could, of course, use them dry out of the pan, because you can re-wet them after they are dried, but they're not going to have that same thick paint-like consistency. It will be more towards probably the watercolor side. If you'd be interested in me doing a follow-up video later on, please let me know in the comments, and I will definitely make kind of an updated review on how they have fared after some time. The lid is kind of a pain to get on. You have to like do it just right and push the corners down. But yeah, overall, nope, that just popped off. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the HIMI gouache. If you're someone who likes really thick paint and doesn't mind the extra maintenance, sacrifice for the convenience of being able to kind of open it up and use them anytime you want without messing with palettes, it could be an interesting option for you. I would definitely say it is worth the investment. The price was pretty affordable, at least what I got it for. I'll leave it linked below to the Amazon link that I got it on, so you can check that out. It's definitely something fun to experiment with, and if you've never used gouache, it would be a fun way to dip your toes in, especially if you got the smaller set. I think they are versatile within journaling. However, if you're looking to kind of write over the top or do other things over the top with markers or media that you don't use a paintbrush for, then this might not be the best option. But definitely a fun supply to play with. I can see why lots of people really, really enjoy them. And I look forward to continue using them myself. Thank you guys so much for being here today and hanging out with me for this HIMI gouache review. I hope that you found this helpful. Please leave your suggestions for our next I Try Your Wishlist Supply series video in the comments below, and I will get those over to my patrons to cast a vote. I am always excited to see what you guys pick every month, and it means so much to me that you continue to watch these videos and get something out of them. So with all that being said, thank you to my patrons for sponsoring today's video. They help make what I do over here on YouTube possible while still paying my bills and feeding my dog Shadow. So a huge thank you to them. Thank you to you for watching. You guys are rock stars. Every thumbs up, comment, and share helps me a ton. So I really appreciate that. And with all that being said, I'll see you guys on my next one. Take care, guys. Bye.